This video contains subject matter that may be offensive and disturbing to some people. If you are the type to require a warning throughout a video or show, let this message serve as your warning. This channel discusses the harsh reality of true crime. If this warning is not sufficient for you, consider a different genre and unsubscribe from my channel immediately. There you go. You guys can see the Christmas lights. I think I might have played this before, but hey, why the hell not, right? There's my little Mavic Mini drone flying around, checking it out. Yep, she did it again. Huh? Oh, it's just some random person's yard I figured I'd fly the drone around in. Somebody asked, whose yard is it? I like this one where I pull back. I know it's not really Christmas music, but yeah, I don't do any of this, okay? The only thing that I do is help buy some of the stuff. We figured out a long time ago, she just gets to do her own thing, you know. I hold a ladder up sometimes when she goes on the roof or something. But basically what she does, she goes on the roof and takes her cell phone with me. And then calls me when she's finished. All right. So, anyways, that's about it. Do I fly any more around? No. Okay, let me see. Whee! Yeah, there I am. Woohoo! Oh man, I had my little workout shorts. Didn't look too good. Anyways, I'm gonna do 2 parts tonight. But I did want to bring up one part here. Yeah, so listen, for all you moderators out there, you're you know, like everybody in the group's on the same team, but you guys definitely have to be kind and nice to each other, okay? You know, don't do the weird comments back and forth, and you know, it's not like there's no team. You know, like there's no teams. Everybody's on the same team. All right, so just think of it like that. I don't want to. It just gets really frustrating seeing some of the bickering and infighting. That's what the problem is. Okay, and it's still going on apparently. So, anyways, I am going to do the show now. And the first one is going to be, well, you know, I'm going to do this first one I'm going to bring up on the screen here is another just one of those absolutely frustrating things. Like, here's the Ohio website. You know, you see her, and, you know, this is 1964, and she's a black woman, pretty, and it has just a little information, which they seem to all just have a little information. But then in the newspaper, this is the only mention in the entire universe of newspapers. And they didn't even spell their name right. I mean, what a joke, okay? It says IDES, but there's an A at the end. 31 of 3412 Harvey Avenue, Avondale, was found dead in her bed. Hey, thank you, Brian Joe.
W.
I thought maybe that was some secret code. You know, she was found dead in her bed about 6 p.m. Saturday. Police said she suffered a stab or gunshot wound in the right side of her neck. Okay, well, let's see. Stab or gunshot wound to the right side of their neck. And then you go over to the website here, the one that I was just looking at. Let me open that up again. And down here they say, well, it doesn't say it on this one. It says that she was strangled to death. So how do you have two so absolutely different things? I don't know. I just think it's really, just really disgusting. The lack of media coverage on cases, especially back then, of minorities. It's just literally, that's something you guys have been here the whole time and have seen the same thing. I show you guys. You know, that's definitely that is one of the systemic things that people, when they say, you know, systemic, you know, bigotry or racism, whatever you want to call it, but that is ludicrous. I mean, this story should have been as big as any of the other ones at the same time, right? Because this one's 1964, and the second case I'll be talking about tonight's also 1964, and it had many pages, you know. Well, at least 9 different days it was covered, you know. So that's it. I mean, police said she suffered a stab or gunshot wound in the right side of her neck. Next, you know, just totally threw her aside. Unbelievable. Okay, so let me get to the first full case here. This one's crazy. This one goes all the way back to 1953 here. Okay, and this is how it starts off. It's a pretty weird one, so I figured I'd bring it up. Okay, this is 1953. A pedestrian identified as Oda Apple, it's a man, 45, who lives at 3123 Hackberry Street, was shot and killed from ambush when walking with his 3-year-old son in front of 3133. It's funny because I didn't even see the address. I found the location based on a photo again. I found this article later. 3133 Hackberry Street, last night, police reported. And here's the home. It's going to fly right to it. So this is where they lived, and they were hanging out. So what I'll do is I'll get to the next story. Or the next page, excuse me. Next story. That's it. Yeah, that's it, everybody. All right, so they actually have a picture in the paper. This is him right here, Oda Apple. And then they have this little sidewalk, and they put a little cross on the ground there. I think it's just an overlay in the photograph, I think. And I think this building's totally different now. And as a matter of fact, if you just turn and head down the street like this, you can see that building right there is definitely the same one in the image when I pull it back up again. So you notice that the top there, and then that little opening, and then that window. See, that's right there. It's kind of far in the background, but it's right there, and you can see that that building appears to be up across the next street, and then this building is this one. As a matter of fact, you can even see how that little part's jutting out towards the street right there. Well, that's what this is right here. This little part right there is jutting out. Now here's the thing, is everything else is different. This part of the building is new, and that means the building ended right there, and that's exactly what you see here when it goes around the corner there. Okay, that's all. Everything there is different now. They've removed, they actually added this part of the building, and obviously they took out a wall that was right here. I think that right there is a remnant from it. Okay, but so that means his body was laying probably like right here. I mean, hell, maybe they even marked it, I don't know. But like right in this area. More like right over here. And there was a wall that went along. And it probably, at the time, matched, well, not, actually, I think they've kept that the same. Look at, here we go. See, on this image, see how there's a narrow sidewalk, and then it gets wide down there, right? So there's grass, narrower, and then down here there's no grass. Well, that's exactly what you have right here. See that? Narrow, and then the grass. So that means he was found basically right here, but a long time ago there was a retaining wall and then some grass that went over there. All right? Okay. Hopefully that made sense. And if it doesn't, God help you. All right, here's the, here it is. The body of Oda Apple 45 of 3123 Hackberry Street was found at the spot indicated Saturday night in front of the parsonage of the Seventh-day Adventist Church at 3133 Hackberry Street. He had been shot in the back of his neck with a .38 caliber pistol or revolver on his way home after a walk to a nearby drugstore. Okay, so what they did was they walked, I think it was like 9 o'clock at night, from their home. They walked like this, then around this corner here, and then went to the drugstore that was right at this intersection, and that's the only thing that looks like a place of business in the area, so probably right there at one time. This is 1953. Then they're walking back, and then when they're right here, and I think we just determined it was a little bit further, like about like this. Right in that area, he was shot in the neck and collapsed right in front of his 3-year-old son. The puzzling, and there's a lot of weirdness in here. He had been shot in the back of the neck with a .38 caliber pistol or revolver on his way home after a walk to a nearby drugstore. Mr. Apple was accompanied by his 3-year-old son, Kenneth. The guy, this is his son right here. Cute little kid. Who ran the rest of the way home screaming. "The firecrackers got Daddy," he said. Police last night still were investigating the puzzling shooting. And so this was August 10th, 1953. Homicide detectives last night were investigating the mysterious slaying of Oda Apple of 3123 Hackberry Street, shot apparently from ambush Saturday night as he walked with his 3-year-old son, Kenneth, in front of 3133 Hackberry. All right. Detectives said Apple was struck in the nape of his neck by a .38 caliber bullet fired from at least 3 feet. So the reason they're saying at least 3 feet is they've probably found no soot or stippling of any kind on him, so it has to be at least 3 feet. I was kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool that they had that same knowledge back then. The bullet struck a bone in the left side of the victim's neck and then veered upwards. So, to me, that would be a strange ricochet if the bullet was already coming down from a downward angle. Let's just say it was a straight shot. I guess it could go either way. But if it was coming from a downward angle, it would be weird if it ricocheted straight up again, because there'd be so much force. I don't know. But the bullet struck a bone in the left side of the victim's neck and veered upwards. He was pronounced dead on arrival at General Hospital. Apple's wife, Mabel, 42, told police her husband and son had watched TV during the evening and had left the home at about 8:45 p.m. to go to the drugstore to purchase headache tablets. Clerks at the William Walliver Pharmacy said he made his purchase and left a few minutes before 9 p.m. The pharmacy is at Woodburn and Fairfax, and that's where I just showed you guys a minute ago. Minutes after that, Mrs. Apple was washing dishes in the kitchen at the rear of their home when the son ran in screaming, "The firecrackers got Daddy!" Mrs. Apple told officers she found her husband lying on his back, unconscious, on the sodded area parallel to the sidewalk in front of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Apple, 45, a patient at Longview Hospital for the last 2 years, had been home for the weekend to visit his family. So he was he's a patient at Longview Hospital. I think it's a psychological hospital, psychiatric, for the last 2 years, and had been home for the weekend to visit his family. He was scheduled to return to the hospital last night. The victim's daughter, Mrs. Mary Thomas, 21, also lives at the Hackberry Street address, was away passing Saturday evening with a girlfriend. That's just wording that we don't really use anymore. So she was away passing Saturday evening with a girlfriend, police said. Mrs. Thomas's husband, a Marine, is stationed in California. And that's his daughter. Detective Sergeant Wilbur Erie and homicide detectives Lytle Young and Eugene Moore said the body was lying in a dark area. They said at least 5 persons in the area, including Mrs. Apple, had recalled hearing what sounded like a shot or a car backfiring about the time of the shooting. Mrs. Frank Breen's of 3127 Hackberry Street, who was in a first-floor room at the front of her house, said she heard the shot and immediately afterward the sound of feet running along the sidewalk away from the scene. Well, couldn't that have been the kid, right? Because he ran immediately to the mom. Miss Breen said she then heard the boy running homeward. So is that a different... She heard feet running along the sidewalk. I think you probably wouldn't be able to hear a 3-year-old running, you know. That's probably so light it wouldn't make much noise. Under repeated questioning yesterday, the youngster maintained that he saw no one near his father at the time of the shooting. The child said his father had not stopped to talk to anyone during the walk. Mr. Apple, who became ill 2 years ago, formerly owned the AC Machine. So, let's see, AC Machine Company at 1123 Walnut Street. The family had lived at the Hackberry Street address for the last 7 years. Mrs. Apple said her husband had no enemies of whom she knew, and that they knew only a few other persons living on the street. Okay, police lack clue and motive. Lack of clues and motive for the slaying Saturday night of Oda K. Apple, 45, led officials last night to a theory that the victim may have been struck by a wild shot from a passing automobile, or even shot by mistake. I don't know. I mean, right in the back of the neck from behind. Mr. Apple was killed when a .38 caliber bullet struck him in the nape of his neck, and he walked his son, as he walked his son Kenneth 3 in front of that church. They were returning home from a trip to a nearby Woodburn Avenue drugstore when the shot was fired. Police said a careful check of the man's friends and associates failed to reveal a motive for his slaying. Officials at Longview Hospital, where he had been an inmate for a short time, said Mr. Apple was a model patient and had no known enemies there. Scheduled for release from the hospital next week, so he was just about to get out of there. He had been at home on a weekend visit when the tragedy occurred. The child, apparently the only witness, told police he saw no one before or after the shooting. So that makes it, sort of weird. Like, wouldn't you have seen, unless the shot was from a little bit further, and, who knows, man. And he's 3 years old, and he's absolutely freaking out. He probably doesn't remember anything. Several residents in the area told police they heard the shot from their homes, and one woman reported hearing someone running after the shot was fired. The theory that the bullet may have ricocheted was discounted. Police pointed out that the slug made a small, rounded wound, not the irregular wound. Yeah, because if it ricochets, it's rotating kind of randomly, not in its original completely tight spiral. When a quarterback throws a really perfect spiral, it's just nice and smooth, and if it went through a piece of paper, it'd be a tight circle. Now when you throw the little wobbly crappy pass, it's going to make a big jaggedy hole in a piece of paper. Let's see. Tests indicating the slug was fired from an old weapon, police disclosed. Meanwhile, funeral services have been set for 2:30 p.m. Okay, and now the next day in the paper, slain man had premonition. And this is crazy. Now it gets sort of this weird stuff going on here. A phone call to the Inquirer last night from a man who claimed he was an escaped Longview Hospital patient indicated that Oda K. Apple, killed Saturday night from an ambush on Hackberry Street, may have had an enemy whom he feared would harm him. The caller, who said he walked away from the hospital grounds Monday night, said he had talked to Mr. Apple Friday afternoon shortly before he went home to visit his family. A check of police records revealed that a man with the name by which the caller identified himself had been missing from the hospital since Monday. The caller declined to say where he was, saying only, "If I behave myself and don't get in trouble, nobody will bother me." He said Mr. Apple, killed 4 doors from his home by a bullet from a .38 caliber pistol, had expressed fear that something is going to happen to me before leaving the institution Friday. The escapee said the slain man had acted nervous and worried, but refused to say or what it was that he feared. Well, what's weird is maybe, what was he doing? This guy. Like, how did he even know that guy was killed at this point? I mean, he's basically quit going to the hospital. Now he's noticing newspaper articles about one of the inmates that was with him. I don't know. Yeah, so anyways, they're saying there's no new clues. And here's another. An abandoned automobile has been found in the neighborhood where Oda K. Apple, 45, 3123 Hackberry Street, was mysteriously slain Saturday night. Neighbors said that the car had been parked at 1708 Dexter Avenue, which is right there. I mean, so the car was parked right here. There's the home. This is where he was shot, but he was shot from this side. And then he was at this grocery store with his kid right there. The spot is around a corner from the sidewalk on Hackberry Street, near Apple's home, where he was shot when walking with his 3-year-old son, Kenneth. Patrolman Tony Shira said the car bore Kentucky license plates and was in running condition. He first noticed it Monday, and when he found it parked, yet on Tuesday he placed a tag on it. Yesterday he found the car with the first tag still on the windshield and wrote out another citation. Several hours later, when the automobile had not moved, he contacted his superior and the car was ordered towed into the city garage. Hey, thanks Chuck Sims. In the glove compartment, police found a large butcher knife, wow, and several military service ribbons. The car was being checked for fingerprints and an attempt was being made to trace the license plates to the owner. Investigators say they were hopeful that the automobile would provide a clue to the killer. The .38 caliber bullet extracted from the victim has been sent to the FBI laboratory in Washington in an attempt to establish the exact make of weapon. Police have been unable to determine if Apple was singled out for an intentional murder, if he was a victim of mistaken identity, or if he was killed by a stray bullet. Let's see. The weather, temperature, configure, and events. It was unusually cool last Saturday night, and as a result, police found themselves without a lead in the shooting. So it just happened to be a cool night when there's absolutely nobody out on the streets in the month of August, when normally it's, a lot of people are still milling about. They found themselves without a lead in the shooting of Oda Apple, felled as he walked with his son near his home on Hackberry Street. Ordinarily, at 9 p.m., the residents on the street would have been sitting on their front porches. If Apple's death was deliberately planned, it is doubtful that the murder would have been carried out in the presence of so many witnesses. So it's like this perfect day that was chosen. If it was accidental, the people on the porches undoubtedly would have been able to give investigators some information. But it was cool, and the front porches were vacant, and Oda Apple's death became a deep mystery. So now you got, like, okay, in the middle of August, a random cool day, out of nowhere, and a miraculous shooting. So doesn't it just feel like, that's too many coincidences. Like the guy, might have chosen that night. Went, oh, this is perfect. I mean, who knows? Also, it's getting kind of, that, I don't know if it's quite completely dark yet, but 9 o'clock, you're getting into the, somewhat dark outside. Okay, let's see. Mrs. Della Carmesino, Columbus, Ohio, primary witness in the Oda Apple murder case, was returned to Cincinnati last night to face 2 charges of secreting and removing mortgaged property. She is also to be questioned further about the mysterious shooting of Mr. Apple on August 8th in front of his home. As far as police know, she is the only adult witness who saw Apple collapse on the sidewalk. She was in her automobile and had stopped for a stop sign at the time. The secreting charges were filed several days ago by Harvey Eggerman of the Allen Radio and Appliance Company, 432 Main Street. Well, I think she's in the middle of a divorce with somebody and was like taking some items that were their payments were being made on that her and her husband had purchased and then selling them. So it has nothing to do with it. It's just she happened to be driving by. Woman unable to aid in Apple murder case. So if she saw him fall, she must not have seen anybody either. But if the person was, a little bit away, maybe they used a rifle. I mean, we don't know. And a rifle with a scope, even back then, probably could make a pretty decent distance shot. Hey, thank you, Nona617. Hey, thank you. LM as in Element Open. I'm so Santa broke, but grateful for this. Oh, well. Anyways, I know this is a tough, you know. It's a crazy, it's just ridiculous what's going on. This whole pandemic shit and all the jobs and, you know. I'm hoping that, you know, the vaccines will really make a big difference. And maybe it'll turn into be one of those things where we have to take it every year. Who knows? But it doesn't seem to go away, though, like the flu. You know what I mean? So there might have to be a moment where we just try to get rid of it.
So Santa broke, but grateful for this week's lives and old cases. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You know how, like, the flu just doesn't... it goes away. Like, people don't catch the flu in June and May. In the United States, anyways. I bet this one just keeps... It's around, you know. It never goes away. It doesn't have a season. So we have to figure out a way to literally just sort of get rid of it. You know. How you do that, I don't know. Well, vaccines do it, you know. But, we'll just have to see. It keeps mutating around, and it seems like they think that it's going to work there, but... Yeah, and it's hard, it's crazy because not very many people have got the flu shot. I mean, the flu this year. And it's because everybody's wearing their masks. And I think a lot of it has to do with people wearing masks, and some are probably underreported. Yeah, I just spent like 30 minutes talking about something else. Juju positive. Jesus. And the flu doesn't spread as easy. What do you mean what do you mean by he wants it? He wants to be able to get it and test it or something, or what? Yeah, sorry about that, Michelle. That sucks. All right, so now let me get back to this. They just got to questioning the, you know, that patient that it got out of the hospital. It says investigation in the Hackberry street slang of Oda Apple August 8th took a bizarre twist last night when police arrested James Finnegan, 27, who walked away from Longview State Hospital several days ago before Apple was shot from the rear by an unknown assailant. Finnegan was returned to Longview, where he and Apple had been fellow patients, so they were there together at the same time. Homicide detectives said they would question Finnegan today to find out what, if anything, he knows of the mysterious slaying. Several days after the slaying, Finnegan telephoned to the Enquirer city desk, declaring that Apple had told him shortly before the slaying that Apple had a premonition of a violent death. Finnegan disappeared shortly after making the telephone call. When arrested last night, he told police he had just returned from Chicago, where he had been staying. Police admitted last night they had no new clues and were entirely in the dark with regard to the identity of Apple's slayer. Yeah, my nobody knows anybody anything would have worked. And you wouldn't really need to be sending out these massive stimulus checks. It would just be nobody would really need money other than for food to live, and kills it. You know, that it literally works. Problem is, there's always this certain people that are greedy. You know, for example, I'm not trying to. It would just be for a pandemic. Listen to this. So you live in an apartment or a house. Okay. Well, now you don't have to pay your mortgage payment or your rent while we have a pandemic and are trying to absolutely wipe it out before it gets going. Okay. And the people you owe your mortgage to, You know, they're a bank. They just don't get anything for a while. And all the people that work at the bank also get a money stipend to buy food too. So anybody they're renting from, they don't owe rent to either. So the thing is it would work. The problem is there's always somebody greedy that needs something even during shitty times. You know, like they go out there and like if there's no money, right? Like it'd be 6 weeks. For God's sakes, can you hold off on letting them owe the mortgage for 6 weeks, right? God, it's ridiculous. And then and the things I would keep open would be, you know, people that work at farms. Obviously, you got to keep food moving around. You've got to have truckers, and they're pretty isolated anyways, right? Like they're in their vehicle driving around, so you keep truckers. And, you know, obviously grocery stores stay open, but everybody else stays at home and only goes to the store when they need food. And that is it for 6 weeks. And that's the only way to make it work. And it's crazy. You know, want to hear something weird? There wouldn't need to be, the stimulus checks wouldn't be $2.3 trillion. It would be so much smaller than that. It would just be enough to get food. You know, maybe you would get something like $1,200 for the 6 weeks for food, right? You know, whatever it is, a certain amount of money per person. And all of your cable, TV, your electricity, everything keeps on going. Because in reality, there's no cost to it. I mean, this sounds like the hardcore utopia, you know, sort of hard left communism bullshit, okay? But the thing is as soon as it's done, you go right back to how it was. You can just turn it off, boom, you're going again. But it just doesn't happen because there's always somebody that wants something. Anyways, can I get back to the story? I just meant to do a quick aside, you know, because of LM's comment, all right? Now we're just off into Never Never Land. Would you guys mind? No, you didn't do anything wrong. I just responded to you, and then it went down into a rabbit hole of something that we can't really control whatsoever. All right. So let's see. This Finnegan guy, he was returned to the Longview Hospital where he and Apple had been fellow patients. Several days after the slaying, Finnegan telephoned the Inquirer city desk declaring that Apple had told him shortly before the slaying that Apple had a premonition of a violent death. Finnegan disappeared shortly after making the telephone call. When arrested last night, he told police he had just returned from Chicago where he had been staying. And maybe he put his gun over there too, who knows. Police admitted last night they had no clues and were entirely in the dark with regard to the identity of Apple's slayer. Okay, then 3 years later, there's an article in the paper. Boy 3 holds only clue in death of his firecrackers got daddy. The shot that killed Oda Apple left a ringing in the city's ears that never will quite go away. To every parent, I don't know, the wife, it just, she doesn't seem, I don't know, maybe there's a guy that she was interested in. I mean, sure. When you say could, Jackie, I have to say, yeah, sure, you know, I don't know. There's nothing here to indicate any of that, though. To every parent who had ever taken his child for an evening stroll, to everyone who occasionally walked to the corner drugstore after dark, the slaying posted one of those questions which should be asked only in nightmares. The question is it safe? And out of the story of Oda Apple comes the insidious answer you never can know for sure. Around 9 p.m. on Saturday, August 8, 1953, Oda Apple, who once made his living repairing typewriters, took his 3-year-old son by the hand and left their home at 3123 Hackberry Street on an errand to the drugstore. On the way back, just a couple of doors down the street, Mr. Apple was killed by a bullet that smashed into the back of his head with the force of a pile driver. Well, it actually hit him in the neck, but the story sounds better that way, I guess. Little Kenny Apple, Little Kenny Apple saw his father stagger and fall. The child ran down the sidewalk and up the steps into his home screaming, "The firecrackers got Daddy!" Standing in the kitchen, that would be the name. If I do an episode of this one on Nefarious, I might not though. It would be called "The Firecracker Got Daddy." It's a perfect title, don't you think? Standing in the kitchen, washing dishes, Mrs. Mabel Apple heard her baby's shrieks. She rushed to the terror-stricken child and asked him what had happened. But he could only point and repeat his chilling cry about the firecracker. Miss Apple found her husband lying on a grass area off the sidewalk in front of the home of the Reverend D.V. Steinman, 3133 Hackberry Street. The police came, and on that cool August night started one of the most intensive and frustrating investigations in Cincinnati history. Yeah, history up until 1959. They learned that Oda Apple had been a patient at the Longview State Hospital. He was a victim of a disease that attacked his nerves. They learned that he was home on his last weekend leave from the institution. He was to have been released the following weekend. But above all, they learned that Oda Apple was the last person in the world you would mark for a murder. He was a quiet and singularly inoffensive man. It is safe to assume that he would never deliberately have inspired the type of passion it takes to kill. Police today lean toward a theory of accidental shooting, a stray bullet, a random shot by someone who never intended the murder. Investigating officers keep this idea in mind because they say they have not been able to find anyone with sufficient motive. And yet, at least 2 sources reported that the 45-year-old victim had had a premonition that something dreadful was going to happen to him. So somebody else said that too. That's kind of weird. And even that weekend, he said something dreadful was going to happen to him that weekend. Another curious thing, Oda Apple was killed on a night when everyone was indoors. There were no witnesses except for an infant boy. This is noteworthy because on most August nights, the residents of Hackberry Street are out on their front porches and in their yards catching a breath of air. That was how it had been earlier in the week. The temperature had been up in the 90s Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, but in midweek, it began to cool off. Saturday night was cool enough to keep people indoors watching television. Coincidence or not, the weather was an accessory to the slang. So isn't that, that's what we were talking about earlier. That just seems so unlikely, right? I mean, neighbors recalled hearing a noise like an automobile backfire. One of them, a Mrs. Frank Breen's, whose senses had been sharpened by a long period of invalidism, said she heard the shot and immediately afterward the sound of feet running along the sidewalk away from the scene. They were the footsteps of an adult, Miss Breen said. She then heard Kenny Apple run away. So she's very certain she heard an adult, and that's what we had some conjecture on a few minutes ago was, his feet. It'd be hard to really tell, but you can tell when somebody heavier is running, right? Okay, Kenny himself was of no help to police. He told them he hadn't seen anyone near his father, that he had not stopped to talk to anyone, But if it was from behind, he might not have noticed. See, here's what I could see is he's walking with his dad. He's shot in the back of the neck right here. And then he goes down. The kid's not going to be looking behind him. He's not looking behind him at all. As a matter of fact, I mean, especially if you look at it like this. I mean, just look at it the way things played out. They were over here at this store. First they were at home, walked to the store, then they're walking back. And they're on the right side of the street. They obviously cross the street to get over to where they're supposed to be going. Oh, wow, look at that. Even the 3D view worked. But let me get on to the street view here. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so they're just walking along like this. Let's say he's holding his son's hand, right? And then, boom! He's facing this way, and he falls forward into the grass over here. He's in this grass right there. And the son would kind of run over and look down and go, oh, wow! And then he keeps running this direction because this is where they live, right? So he just would have kept running this way to, I mean, it's not even that far. So there's no reason that the kid would look behind him. So somebody could have been about 10 feet away, boom, taken off. The kid would have just been focusing on his dad and ran this way to go home and says, the firecrackers got daddy, right? Got to get the hell out of the clouds here. And he runs home, and then his wife comes running out and comes over here and finds him on the street dead, basically. Yeah, so to me it makes sense that he wouldn't have been, wouldn't have even looked behind him to see if there was a shooter. Adults would do that because you immediately think of something like that. A kid's just 3, he doesn't know what he's doing. All right, so that's it on that one, you guys. That's where that case has lied for all those years. What did welcome at Gray Freak? I don't know what that means. All right, I'm going to go take just a short little break to do the second one, and then I'm going to take a couple hours off. I'm going to come on later than normal, like 9:30 or something, my time. So that way people in the UK can do it. Yeah. So just 1 minute. Louder music for you guys. Hey, thank you, Sarita. Appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Okay, now the next one we're going to do here is Jessica Minter. And she didn't have a picture on that website, so but there is one in the newspaper. All right. So Jessica Minter. Whoa. All right. And here we go. This is her right here, Jessica Minter. This one sounds a hell of a lot like one of the other ones that we've covered. This is 1964 now, December 23rd, so just before Christmas. The search for the brutal slayer of a teenage girl appeared to be bogging down today. Sheriff deputies who had hoped for a quick solution to the fatal stabbing of Jessica Minter worked far into the night, apparently without turning up a suspect. Jessica, a popular 14-year-old, found on the living room floor of her home in Westridge. She had been stabbed 21 times. Well, doesn't that sound a hell of a lot like the one from yesterday? The case of, I think it's Beverly Jaros. And that case was, you know, here's what's crazy, is that case is December 28th, 1964. This one. And that's this girl, right? Look at that. December 28, 1964.
Thanks,
and you remember she was stabbed 42 times. Okay? So doesn't that just seem like, again, that's kind of coincidental. 1964, you've got, within 5 days of each other, you have two girls stabbed viciously multiple times in the same state, but they don't live right next to each other. But obviously in 5 days you can drive through, you know. So anyways, Jessica, a popular 14-year-old, was found. The other one was 16. So we're in a similar age range here. Jessica, a popular 14-year-old, was found on the living room floor of her home in Westridge. She had been stabbed 21 times. Early questioning centered on teenage boys in the neighborhood. The girl's mother, Mrs. Elizabeth Minter, had left the house Tuesday for her office in Springfield an hour and 55 minutes before the body was found by a girlfriend. See, again, this sounds almost identical, doesn't it? I mean, if I got the right case, isn't Jaros the case where her friend was supposed to be there and her mom called, right? Yes, that's right. This is the one. The mom called at like noon, or maybe it was 1. I can't remember exactly, and then called again, and she said, "Oh, my friend's gonna be here. I gotta go." And then the friend goes to the door, and she's already dead at this point, or actually, she's probably struggling for her life. She's been garroted, and stabbed 42 times. And I think the item that was being pushed over in the Jaros case was during the struggle while she was being garroted. What do you mean, Mesra? I just said it was 5 days. There's 5 days difference. It's in the same state. Of course there's time. Yeah. So anyways, Miss Minter, a divorcee, is the secretary-treasurer. Hold on a second. Hey, divorcee, what are you talking about? Oh, the mother, her mother. I was like, whoa, jeez. The girl's mother, Miss Elizabeth Minter, had left the house Tuesday for her office in Springfield an hour and 55 minutes before the body was found by a girlfriend who had stopped by to pick up Jessica to go swimming. See, it's weird, right? Because the other one was going to have a friend come over as well, right? Miss Minter, a divorcee, is secretary-treasurer of Fink and Hine Company, a meat-packing firm here. Yeah. Well, and don't worry, Mesera. You know, I maybe I wasn't clear that it was in the same state, but it's probably like 100 and something miles. Let's see. I'll go up in the air and... So that's Jessica's home. And then Jaro's home. Okay, there it is. Oh, shoot, I just lost it. Okay, right there. So it is from here. It's 178 miles. That's it. Yeah, what I probably shouldn't do is I shouldn't even answer any questions. You guys can just fill it all in. All right. Hold on. Let's see. All right. Wait, I wasn't even done with that last one. Okay. Investigators believe the girl answered a knock on the door. And remember, the other one had somebody that maybe was a book salesman. Answered a knock on the door and was stabbed almost immediately upon opening it. She was stabbed once in the back, once in the head, and 19 times in the chest. The girl was clad in a house dress. Bloodstains were found on a closet near the front door. There were no signs of a struggle. No weapon was found. Okay, good, Mesra. All right, let's see. Significant clue found in slang. July 4th, Clark County authorities say they have a significant clue in last Tuesday's vicious knife slaying of 14-year-old Jessica Minter. Investigators report they have classified a blood spot other than the victim's and theorize it may have come from her attacker. The blood spot, and easily cut your own finger on knives when you're stabbing so crazed like that, you know, like Jodi Arias and all these other, you know, you just hit a bone, and there's so much blood now on the knife that it becomes slippery, and then you hit a bone and your fingers just slip right off and get cut on the blade itself. Sometimes your palm, depending on which direction the blade is. The blood spot had been classified as O negative. The girl's blood grouping was O positive. Well, hopefully they still have that. Said the O negative blood sample was taken from beneath a throw rug on which the girl's body was discovered. Meanwhile, the sheriff's office is waiting results of a lie detector test given to a 17-year-old acquaintance of the victim. The boy voluntarily submitted to the test, said authority, I don't know what NAD authorities plan to ask other acquaintances to undergo such examinations. Authorities had hoped to question Mrs. Elizabeth Minter, the victim's mother, who had been under sedation prior to the girl's funeral yesterday. Questioning of Mrs. Minter has been deferred until later. I guess they used to do that. Give sedation to people. You know, when you're depressed about something. The victim and her mother lived northwest of here in a fashionable suburban home at 2801 Anita Drive. So we'll just take a look at that. Oh yeah, you know, actually I don't think there's street view here. That's right. They have a 3D version of it, but no street view. So that's the home right there. I wouldn't be... I guess in this case, the person knocked on the front door. And I think the same thing was in that other case that I just mentioned. Residents in the comparatively new neighborhood and the victim's friends have been questioned several times by authorities. A high school chum found Jessica dead. I think he meant in the living room. It says no, the living room. In the living room floor, or on, is what they meant. On the living room floor around 10:35 a.m. Tuesday. Wow. And her mom hadn't left too much before that. She was clad in a shorty nightie. More friends and associates of slain 14-year-old Jessica Minter will be asked to take lie detector tests this week. The sheriff said he regards the lie detector as the best present hope of tripping up the killer who left the girl dead Tuesday morning on the floor of her Lawrenceville home. The girl had been stabbed 21 times while her mother was at work. The mother, who had been under sedation, was questioned Saturday and yesterday, but had been unable to shed any light on the mystery. Miss Minter said she thought she locked the front door of her home when she left for work at 9 a.m. It was about 2 hours later, I think it was 10:45, when the body was found by one of Jessica's girlfriends. The front door was unlocked at the time, and investigators are speculating that Jessica unlocked it to admit the person who killed her. And she may have even thought it was her other friend, right? Only the girl's 17-year-old boyfriend, Bruce Fuller, has taken a lie detector test so far, and the written report from the State Investigator Bureau at London has not been received at this time. Thackeray declined to discuss any preliminary findings. Okay. And these are all just one, on the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 6th, 7th, and 9th of the month, these articles. So just boom, 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 and then they disappear forever. But at least there was something, right? Minter girl dead hours after finding, dead hours at finding. Huh. How's that possible? Well, that sounds weird now, because then she would have been dead. Let's see what they say here. A coroner autopsy shows that 14-year-old Jessica Minter died about 2 to 4 hours before her body was found 1 week ago. Well, how could that be? Because her mother left at 9 and she was found at 10:45. How can you say 2 to 4 hours? That means the mother would have been there. Yeah, I don't know what they're trying to... That'd be strange. That would mean the mother would have something to do with it then, I guess, right? Yeah, I don't think a teenage boy did it. Not saying it's not possible, because as we were talking about last night, there was a 17-year-old that did kill somebody. This was the first time authorities have... and stabbed that person to death. This was the first time authorities have revealed information about the time of death. So maybe that's why they wanted to question the mother so much. Jessica's body was found at 10:55. Okay, so that would match, like, if she was killed just after the mom left, which actually kind of makes sense, right? Like, if you're a killer and you know who your target is, the moment the mother leaves, you might, as she drives down the street, you might come back and knock on the door, and maybe the girl inside might think it's her mom coming back, forgetting something, right? And just opens the door up casually. He goes busting in, kills her. Well, then she's dead around 2 hours prior, right? Because she was stabbed immediately as he came in. So let's say, and the 9 o'clock, did she really leave right at 9? Okay? Did she leave at 8:54? And how exact is this 2 to 4 hour thing? Jessica's body was found at 10:55. Miss Elizabeth Minter, Jessica's mother, had told authorities that her daughter was awake but still in bed when she left for work in Springfield at about 9 a.m. About 9 a.m. Sheriff Thackeray said Miss Minter, a divorcee, underwent a lie detector test yesterday at the Springfield police station. The test was not satisfactory. Ooh boy, the sheriff said. He said this could be due to sedatives, which the mother had been taking since her daughter's death. It is possible Miss Minter will be asked to take another lie detector test, Sheriff Thackeray said, and he said other persons also will be asked to take such tests. So far, the sheriff said only the mother and Jessica's 17-year-old boyfriend, Bruce Fuller, have taken lie detector tests. The sheriff indicated results of the tests taken by Fuller. I mean, you know, obviously this whole article is suggesting the mother since the beginning, right? So, you know, that's what the article is about, because everybody, you know, who's been following the story knows that she says she left at 9. She was found at, one article said 10:45. Now it's 10:55. But the coroner says she died 2 hours to 4. And, you know, right when she left the house, though, that's right at 2 hours, right? I mean, nobody's going to be within, oh, wait, no, that was an hour and 55 minutes. Okay, well, you're screwed because we said 2. There's nothing that exact, that, especially back in 1964 with a time of death like that. Sheriff Thackeray said Miss Minter was questioned extensively yesterday for the 3rd consecutive day to determine whether she could recall anything which might help in the investigation. The questioning becomes particularly important, the sheriff noted, since the coroner's ruling indicates the girl's death could have occurred moments after, there you go, or even before the mother drove away. Exactly. So I'm going with she had just left. I think it's, how many, let me just ask you this. How often do you see a mother stab their own daughter 17 times in a home? I mean, it's so rare. It's happened, but it's very rare, right? And I just think that I think the killer is more likely to have waited outside, watched the mother leave, and knew that she was there alone, and immediately approached the home at that moment. And it's a good time to do it too, right? Because anybody inside the house at that point is going to think it's the person who just left. Yeah. After leaving her home and before heading for work, Mrs. Minter went next door to pay a neighbor boy, he's only 10-year-old, Billy Hellrich, for cutting her lawn early that morning. Billy had told authorities he heard a scream come from the Minter house sometime after Mrs. Minter paid him. There you go. He also recalled seeing a boy's red bicycle by the Minter's porch around the time he heard the scream. Sheriff Thackeray said the coroner had ruled that the death instrument was a knife. The sheriff said the weapon still had not been found. Well, that's interesting. You know, 10-year-old's got a pretty good memory. All right, new details, no light in the area, so they said. They were 2 developments yesterday in the Jessica Minter slaying case, but neither shed much light on who killed the 14-year-old girl. The girl's body, stabbed 21 times, was found in her living room at 10:55 a.m., the day of the murder, by a girlfriend who came by for a swimming date. Yesterday, Mrs. Elizabeth Minter, the girl's mother, told police she and Jessica returned home the night before the murder and found the front door open. Ooh, that's interesting. God, what if there was somebody in the house already? They searched but found no one, Miss Minter said. She told police earlier she left the house about 9 a.m., the day of the murder, to go to her office at a Springfield meat packing firm. Officials also said yesterday a lie detector test. You know what they should have done was check to see what time she clocked in and then subtract out a few minutes for the paying the kid and the drive. Officials also said yesterday a lie detector test given to a 20-year-old youth just paroled on bank robbery charges had cleared him of any connection with the slang. The youth had been identified for police in 1961 by Jessica's mother, and officials were investigating a possible revenge motive. Oh, that's interesting. Results of lie detector tests given to Mrs. Minter and Jessica's 17-year-old boyfriend were termed unsatisfactory by officials. Right. That's what you say when you want to, get more questioning done. Yeah, I mean, why would the boyfriend need to do that? Right. Intensive questioning of just, it says Pesica's, but they meant to put Jessica's friend, acquaintances, and neighbors, has been conducted since the murder, but officials apparently have failed to turn up any substantial clues. And that's it on that one. Can you believe that? But that one's wild. I think that one actually could be related to the other one that we were talking about. What do you think, Mesera? It's kind of an interesting community. Usually things that look like this, everyone's packed in, but yeah. So that's it. That was part one. I'll be back on a little bit later this evening. So thank you to Brian Joe, Chuck Sims, Nona617, LM, Sarita, and Linda Howell, as in Linda Moldenhau of the Cattle Mutilations and Crop Circles. All right. So there you go. And I'll probably be, like 9:30 or so, my time. Then we'll do the other. There's 3 more stories. One of them's pretty short, but there we go. All right. So we'll see you guys a little bit later. Hey, thanks, Claudia Neubauer at the buzzer. Boom. Claudia Neubauer. Tonight on NBC, Claudia Neubauer stands behind Fructose Doulos as he's being questioned in front of the courthouse. Claudia Neubauer. All right. Okay, everybody, we'll see you a little bit later. And as I always say, everybody, until next time, be safe out there. Yeah, I've been doing this true crime thing for quite a while now. And during this whole time, I have not seen one person that is a crime dissector, projector. I'm a certified human lie detector. Gonna get ya on a stretcher if you try and play me like an old projector. Crime sector is my nectar. Professor Grayl's gonna give another lecture. Crime collector, freak connector, and I'm always gonna be a pup protector. Fool deflector, interceptor, and I mean than a spectre with a vector on his pector. With all respect, y'all, just remember I've a temple fucking check ya. I have no agenda, I'm no pretender, and I'll serve it to you straight without the blender. And in the end, I'm gonna send ya on a mission to reveal the true offender.
Alright,
Yeah,
okay,
so
cool,
let's get right back to
man.
work. Alright, everybody, talk to you.
Alright, yeah, we'll see you guys a little bit later, okay? Part 2's coming up in just a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later, okay? Hey, see you later, Mary Lou.
Oh, hey, see you later, John Boy. We'll get them all later, okay?
Yeah, just like we always do.
Hey, you guys know that they're still listening to you, right?
Oh, I mean, I don't like you, Mary Lou.
Yeah, I don't like you either.
Oh, that's totally bogus.
Hey, you guys gave up your secret. You gave up your secret. All right, everybody, be safe out there.